We'd arrived relatively late to the car park for today's adventure. It was only around 6 miles to where I planned to camp for the night, and we had 5 hours before sunset. The party consisted of me and my dog, Floki, and it had been a wee while since he'd last been in the hills. I figured it was best to take things easy for him, and we had plenty of time to do that. The route had started along a tarmac road between the Walker's car park and the picturesque Dalmunsey Castle Hotel. However, it wasn't long before I made it to softer, more pleasant ground for walking on. To reach camp, I would be ascending around 450 metres, most of which would be contained in today's final mile. For now, Floki and I could enjoy easy walking, following the river as it wound its way up the glen. Not sure if it's too dark to make this out, but there's a whole bunch of deer up there just at the skyline. So that's the glen that we've walked all the way up from the hotel. It was nice and flat pretty much until we got to the end here. Just that last kilometre or so, it's been pretty much straight uphill. And then if I turn round, up there is where we've still to go. That was the steep bit out of the way. Still some more uphill to do. And yeah, I reckon another half an hour we should be somewhere to pitch up camp. Here we are at tonight's campsite, up at Loch Nanoon. We're a little over 800 metres here, and there's nobody here. Actually, that's not true. I saw a group on the far side, the opposite side of the loch from me. Somebody on the way up told me that they're apparently a Duke of Edinburgh group, but they are so far away from me that it's not going to make any difference whatsoever. So this is going to be Floki and my room for the night. Not bad, eh? Right, I'm gonna get the tent set up and get some food on. Tonight's dinner, chicken fajita with rice. I might add a little bit of water into that. There we go. Mine. All mine. Okay? Mine. Good evening, folks. As you can see, it's me all set up in my tent. We've got Floki curled up. Don't know if you can see him there. Ball of fluff. He is lying there listening to the noise of all the grouse. I think he's a bit tired though. While I was having a nice cup of tea outside, he just curled up in a ball and tried to go to sleep. So I don't think he's going to be wanting to go out again this evening. But we'll wait and see. I had some nice chicken fajita and rice for dinner. Followed up with a cup of tea and some jelly beans. And I watched a little bit of red colour playing out on the sun, playing out on the clouds from the sun as it set. But nothing too spectacular. There was enough clouds, but they didn't all pick up the reddy pink tinge. I've not seen anybody else since I set camp up here, so we've just been hanging out and staring across the loch. So it's quite a nice campsite here, just on the sort of the western edge of Loch Nanyun. Wasn't that long to walk up from the car. We got here 6 o'clock on the dot, and we left at 20 to 3, so just a little under 3 hours to walk that. A little over 3 hours to walk that. Tomorrow's a longer day. We've got 16 kilometres to do, but I think in total for tomorrow there's only about 500 metres of ascent. So that's gonna be yeah, about the same as we did today. So more distance, about the same ascent, nice and easy. But the temperature's dropped really quickly since the sun went away. I've got all my layers on now, including my nice down-filled trousers to keep me warm, and I think I'm going to snuggle up into my sleeping bag and maybe listen to some podcasts or something. So I will say good night and see you in the morning. Good morning, folks. Well, that was a surprisingly noisy night last night. The grouse were right up beside the tent, practically shouting in my ear, keeping me awake. It was a full moon last night, and it was pretty bright in the tent. It was also rather cold, so I didn't bother going outside to take a look at it. I just curled up in my sleeping bag and chilled out in the tent, literally chilled out in the tent. Floki has had a good night's sleep, have you? You had a good night's sleep, pup? Yeah? So I think it's time to get up and have a look outside and see what the world looks like on this fine Sunday. Get some tea. Get a nice hot cup of tea, I think. What do you think? Yeah, let's do that. Alright folks, that's camp all packed up and into the rucksacks, which should be there somewhere. As always, if we have a look around, leave no trace. It's time to head off in this direction and go find Carnan Ree. Clouds have started dropping down a wee bit, so maybe going to find myself walking up in the clag a bit. Guess I'll find out. Over there, just about out of the clouds, is the route that we're going to be taking this afternoon to head up Glastuallachen. So I'm hoping that it clears more before then. And then if we swing around here, that's the path that we're going to be following today. And that's going to take us up Carnan Ree, which is completely hidden in the clouds right now. And if I come round just a little bit further, that's Mamnan Cairn, and we're basically going to be walking around the side of this hill to reach the little bealach between that and Carnan Ree before we start heading up the slopes of Carnan Ree. As we neared the summit of Carnan Ree, my hopes for a good view faded away. The clouds hadn't cleared in the way I'd hoped, and all around lay hidden in the grey. I sat for a few minutes to see if the clouds would blow through, and was rewarded with a brief glimpse of a view to the north. But the ground was too rocky for Floki to get comfortable on, so pretty soon we were off again. Here we've got some tiny little blaeberries just ready for the picking, I think. Okay. I think I'll have another. Yep, tasty. So we've been following this path behind me, which is pretty much heading back the way that I came down, and I don't want to go all the way back to my campsite because feels like it's been a waste of time carrying all my stuff down here. So what I think I'm going to do, if I just swing us around, I'm going to head down there, and there's what looks like a really shiny boulder, and I think I'm going to go there and have some lunch. So here's our little lunch spot. Floki's getting stuck into an extra helping of his food, seeing as how he's been working so hard today. Here we've got the what looked like a silver boulder from up at the path. It's actually this lovely white piece of rock. And if I move in closely, here we've got my lunch. Macaroni and cheese from Summit to Eat. We didn't have a great experience with the last one of these macaroni and cheeses. My son felt rather unwell after eating one, and that nearly ruined my tent. We spin round. My well-stuffed rucksack. The ubiquitous Jetboil that everybody seems to have these days. And a nice flat seat to sit on and eat. So just down there in the foreground, well, sort of middle distance, you can see Loch Nanoon, where we camped last night. Can't see our camping spot, but you can see the couple of islands that are on it. Be interesting to paddle out to those and have a camp on them. And then over in the distance, you can see the tors on top of what I think is Benan. I'll need to check that on the map when I get home. But if that's Benan, then on the left in the distance should be Benavoord. The views from the summit of Glastulican perfectly mirrored those of Carn an Rí. If anything, the visibility was probably even worse. I stood at the summit for a short time, but it was pretty clear nothing was going to be seen from there today. And with that, we began the long journey back downhill to the car, following rather wide Land Rover tracks. reached the car just as it began to rain. I had planned to reward myself with a nice cup of tea before heading home. Given the weather, I decided just to change into some better footwear for driving and headed home.